Welcome back to Early Days with Mike Calverley. In the first episode, we found out about his journey through Labatt, through Kitchen Partners, and now we focus on Propellerant. And it's not a deodorant. It's
no, not that.
It's actually helping out sales executives, insights into how to help them succeed.
Yeah, it really is. Sort of my 30 plus years of being in business, and I had the benefit really of only working in two organizations, really, really big at Labatt, but then really, really small, sort of entrepreneurial, okay, we've got to build everything from the ground up. It's really based on those experiences, both the really good ones and maybe the not so good ones that leave a bit of a mark. How can I help give back? How can I help other people learn maybe a little faster based on the experiences that I've had over 30 plus years. So, the name Propellerant, I like propel. I like the idea of moving forward. I like that motion that comes with propel, and then accelerant. So let's throw a little accelerant on the fire to actually see if we can speed that along. So really I wish I could say it was some mystic thing, but it really was just about squishing those two things together, and it was trademarkable. So that's where we got to Propellerant Consulting.
And as we thank Proust Chown, the sponsor of Early Days, and they focus on helping out entrepreneurs in many facets of the business. And you now you've gone through the corporate world, you've gone into a business of about 80 people when you think about Kitchen Partners. Yep. So now, who makes up Propeller?
There's myself, and I actually work quite closely with one of my other partners from Kitchen Partners. He has a consulting business, and we share some clients together. But it really is focused on individuals, leaders, and leadership teams that want to change their business. Sort of sustainably. How do we sustainably change our business, grow, maybe do things differently, and not because it's bad right now, but I think it's the idea of it can be better, and getting some outside experience, some outside lens into somebody's business to say, hey, think about, have you looked at, and it was through big corporate learnings and the way big corporations do it, but then the practical, hey, we got to put food on the table today, the entrepreneurial side of a really small startup business.
So if they're watching or listening this podcast, it's really a unique niche in sales executive training. Would that encapsulate it?
Yeah, and it goes slightly beyond that, because it starts first with the organization. What is the purpose, vision, values of that organization? And then how does that translate to the customer, to the product, to the service, what have you, whatever it is that you do. Those things all kind of have to hold together, because if the organization's saying one thing corporately, purpose, vision, values, but they're asking the folks responsible for revenue generation to do something differently, or it doesn't really line up, that's where infighting can happen, and that internal thing can really take over. When that happens, now we're not focused on the customer. And as soon as you're not focused on the customer, things can happen that maybe have unintended consequences.
I think a lot of times too, businesses, they just start up and they don't think clearly about what the goals and the visions are until things are really rolling, and then you're sometimes too busy to pay attention to it.
Sure, it's the in the business, on the business, right? That's a very classic thing. Most people spend a lot of time in the business, whatever it is they do, and not enough time on the business. And I think where we add value is, okay, wait a minute, let's make sure we're dedicating time to work on the business. Who is our ideal customer? Oh, I haven't thought deep enough about that. I know there's some folks we like, and we'll sell to anybody. And that's not necessarily a bad thing early days, because you're trying to prove concept, you're trying to learn, but soon enough, you got to get really focused, because there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many resources. Can you get better bang for your buck by being more focused? And that's some of what we work through with some of our clients. And it starts with, who's your best client today? What makes them so good? Okay, where can we go find more of those folks? Where are some things where it didn't go so well, where you kind of blew your brains out? It didn't go as good as you thought. Okay, well, let's do less of that and more of the good stuff.
Okay, so when a client calls you, do you start right with the customer, or do you figure out internally as a company, first of all, that they're taking care of that part of the business first before they can take care of the customer?
It starts with asking a lot of questions to really get an understanding of where's the business at. They have a big history. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. You really have to spend time to say, where's the business at? And it could be, hey, I've got a problem today. Okay, we'll get to that, but I need a little more background information first to say, is that really the right problem? Or is that a symptom of something else that's going on in the business that actually needs some tending first? Or in conjunction with, oh, we have to solve this problem today. Lots of people have revenue challenges. Everybody wants to grow more than they're growing today. But sometimes it requires a step back to go, am I focused on the right things? Have I done a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Have I done a robust SWOT analysis to understand, yeah, I think maybe there's a market that's not being served fully? Or, geez, that's really competitive. How am I going to shine in this arena? Maybe I should do something slightly different.
So are you still with Kitchen Partners?
I'm still an investor, so still kind of connected to the business that way, but not in a day-to-day sort of capacity.
So now that all the learnings that you've had from that to what you are today, is there a client that you've had right now that you go, oh, that was a big win?
Yeah, I'm working with a food company. I'm sitting on an advisory board with a food company in Vancouver right now, and it's really just, we're about a year into it, and you're starting to see some of the trees bear a little bit of fruit from some seeds that we planted almost 6 months ago. And that's starting to give you encouragement. There's starting to be some momentum in the business. They're figuring some stuff out. They're making some tough choices. And of course, it starts first with people. But it's fantastic to start to see. I was just on a call yesterday, sort of a quarterly board meeting call, and to hear some of the wins and hearing the CEO talk about how it's going, it's bravo. How do we pour a little more gas on that fire and keep it going?
You have a 6-step growth strategy, and that model is really a cornerstone of the business of Propellerant. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it starts first from really understanding our current business. So, a lot of people want to run off to, again, it depends on the business, but hey, let's go set up a satellite office, even if it's just in Calgary, or we're going to go to the US, or we're going to go somewhere else. And they don't think through all of the challenges that come with, how's it going to be when we set up a satellite space? Again, whether it could be just down the road in Calgary, or it could be as far away as the US. They don't necessarily think through all of the challenges coming with that. So before you get there, have we really optimized our current offering? So, for instance, it could be something like, I'll use the term nonconformist. So let's say we're making a soup for a restaurant. I'll go back to my kitchen partner days. And everybody in the chain is supposed to be carrying that soup. But maybe there's a few stores not carrying that soup. They decided we're going to make it ourselves. So that's a case of nonconformist. Hey, they're supposed to be on the program, they're not. Have we actually gone through that and understood, is everybody buying the soup? Because it's already in the distribution channel, its pricing's already agreed to, the customer is already there, that particular store just isn't buying. So let's start there and close all the nonconformity down before we take on this other big challenge of going to a completely different market. So that's sort of the first rung of the ladder. Have we really optimized everything with our current offering? And then we can talk about, well, with that gear and capability, can we make something else? Or can we sell something else to that existing client base? They're already a client, they already know us, they already trust us, we have a relationship. Do we have something else that we can sell them versus going somewhere else or trying to find somebody new? Because, for the client standpoint, switching is hard. they're already buying that service. They're already buying that product. So it's a lot more work versus we already have a relationship with them. What else can we sell them? It's easy for us to manufacture or, again, add that service. Hey, let's go to that level. Do we understand that? Then we can go to brand new skills and capabilities. What new skills and capabilities? Well, we have internal training we have to do. So again, that's what makes it even harder. Maybe we have to buy some new equipment, or we have to find a new offering. We have to create it out of thin air. That's a bunch more work. Those aren't bad choices. But, you know, in the terms of best return on our time, I think some people default to maybe the really sexy idea, the really new thing, when they haven't exhausted all of these other things first. Because so that's part of the strategy.
Because the growth strategy for if you're not optimizing your business that you have already, then why are you already expanding? And
exactly.
That happens so often.
So often people get lured in we could do this now.
Yeah.
Without really thinking through, okay, well, what's that going to mean? Are our people trained? Do we know how to deal with service complaints? Again, it just depends on the product, but those are the things you need to think through before you just go and launch the new thing, because again, if doesn't matter really whether it's product or service, you have to think through all of the steps, not only for the customer, how are they going to buy it, how are we going to get it to them, how are we going to manage it internally. Those are sometimes hidden costs that people don't necessarily fully account for. It just sounds like, we had this really bright idea, let's set up an office in Calgary.
And you started on the bottom rung. And what's the top rung? What's the last question you would ask a client?
It could be in the, sort of in a realm of mergers and acquisitions. Should we actually take the skills and capabilities of what we know, but we're going to go completely far afield and try it in a brand new industry that we don't know anything about? So, yeah, some bigger businesses, they can afford to do that. Yep, we're going to leave this or keep doing this, and we're going to go to a completely different left turn. They can kind of see the synergies, but it comes with a whole host of brand new learnings on many, many, many fronts.
What is from your vantage point, the most frequent challenges that businesses they encounter, let's say in sales and development, because that's really what you're doing with Propellerant, and is helping sales and development. Yep. What's the biggest challenges you see businesses today facing?
It's understanding great metrics. So goal setting and great metrics around this growth. Everybody wants to grow. I don't know any business today that doesn't want to grow, but do they put the time and energy into what is realistic? How do we measure ourselves? How are we checking in? It tends to just be growth for growth's sake without a deeper understanding of setting realistic targets, how we bring in everybody along. Again, thinking about it from a manufacturing standpoint, do we have the capacity to do that? What happens if it takes off? Who are we going to target? What is realistic growth expectations? And how does the whole organization, not just, again, the sales team, how does the whole organization support that? And I can give you an example of one of the strategic things. This is going back to the kitchen partner days, when we would develop a product with a customer. I wouldn't necessarily just say for, I would say with, because we did it in concert with them. We actually aligned the finance team and the product development team together so that the product development team built the makings of the recipe, whatever that soup, sauce, dressing happened to be, real time, so that we could turn around pricing for a customer in less than 2 hours and hold that price for a year. We built the system strong enough, and the finance team knew that's how we're going to do it versus, our competitors, and we had a few different competitors, the likes of Nestle, Campbell's, Heinz, maybe you heard of them, sort of big behemoths. It would take those guys 3 weeks to get pricing, and we could have it done in 2 hours. So we were nimble and quick, and that was our competitive advantage against the world of Nestle, Campbell's, Heinz.
How come so many businesses, when they do expand, and because they think they have to expand to make more money, the growth of it,
yep.
But how so many lose, where you'll hear somebody say, geez, they were better back in the day, blah, blah, blah. How do you stop that?
It's a great question. It is around communication, bringing everybody along, and not losing the thing that makes you special. that care, that passion, that it's easy when, the team is a smaller number. It's one shift or whatever, or, it's one retail store and everybody that you hired, but now you have another store and it's somewhere else and you have remote employees. So making sure you have I come back to purpose, vision, and values, because that's the glue that holds it all together. But how often are we talking to them? Are we communicating with them? Are we listening to them? Those are the things that really matter, so that tribal knowledge that started when it was a smaller group can be disseminated and translated to many, many different people, whether it's distance or time. It's a big deal, really big deal.
Looking at the future, is there anything, advice you can give, any trends that you see that companies should be aware of?
It's not new, but being focused on the customer. I mean, that is the thing that makes it all go around. Again, I'll go back to my kitchen partner days. The two most important groups in our business were those that looked after customers and those that actually made the food. Everybody else's support. So whether that's finance or HR or quality assurance or, distribution, you're supporting those two functions. Those are the two most important groups in our company, and everybody else supports. So that breaks down with, we actually have to understand our customers' business better than they understand it. So early days, I worked in our customers, I worked in their restaurants. Not because I'm a chef, boy, I shouldn't be anywhere near the food, but I stood back in their kitchens during the busiest times, Friday night, Saturday night, to watch how they did it so that I could learn. And I'll give you a great example. One of our customers, we had a very uniform box. It was a 20-pound box that we put, it would be this sauce or that soup, but the outside box was the exact same. So I was there one Sunday morning when they were doing inventory, and all the boxes looked the exact same. And I remember listening to this kitchen manager complaining, saying, I can't tell which is that. And I said, well, what if we put colored labels? Would that make your counting easier? You could do that? Well, sure, we could do that. So we invested in colored labels. One was green, one was orange, and one was blue, one was white. So it was easier for those guys to do inventory. Didn't cost us anything other than inventorying some different colored labels, but it made their life so much better. Great. You only learn those things by being in our customer's place of business.
And how many bosses that should be going into the trenches do nowadays?
I'm not sure the exact number, but it needs to be more. You got to be spending more time on the floor with your people and in your customer's place of business. The other meetings and other things, those facilitate those other two areas. So the faster you can get through those other things so that you can spend time with your people, taking roadblocks out of the way, helping communicate where we're headed, why we're headed that way. That's a really important thing. And then really understanding our customer's business better than they understand it so that we can bring value to them. That's the best place in the world for an entrepreneur to be.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So Propellerant, do sometimes you have to say that, have that hard talk with a guy that's hired you, and you're saying, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's part of the value. They need to understand that's where the business happens. I'm a really terrible golfer. Because I spent no time on the golf course as a salesperson, which shocks a lot of people. What do you mean? Yes, you can conduct some business there, but that's not really where the business happens, in my opinion. Yeah, it's fun to do, and I played my odd tournament. But the magic really happens in a restaurant Friday night at 6 o'clock. And some people will say, well, I don't really want to leave my family or be there when they're doing inventory Sunday morning. Well, that's where the business happens. So, best get at it.
Yeah. Propellerant, now that you've started it, what's your long-term goal for it?
It's one of the things I'm just getting set to launch in the next 2 months is a peer-to-peer group for executives responsible for the revenue and business development of their organization. So here, I want to launch that here in Edmonton with 8 business leaders to get together once a month, spend about 4 hours. There's a laid out agenda with where we're going to spend our time. And part of that is working on those 8 individuals, picking one of them a month and going deep on a business challenge that they have, and having 9 minds working on that problem. Wouldn't that be a great way to get some insight in from other people's businesses that aren't connected, but maybe somebody else has got an idea. Maybe somebody else has an example that says, hey, have you thought about, hey, this worked for me. So I'm just in the throes of putting the final touches on the document that sort of brings it all together for folks, and then sharing that and looking for 8 business leaders here in Edmonton to come together and want to be a part of something like that.
What's your contact info, Mike? Because I have a feeling everybody watching and listening to this podcast going, sign me up.
Yeah, well, that we can absolutely make sure that gets put out there for folks. But yeah, I'm really excited about it because I think back to when I was at Kitchen Partners, early days, I had to figure a lot of it out on my own. And there was some trial and error and probably some really dumb things I did that I thought were smart at the time. Wouldn't it be great to have had a sounding board that said, hey, before you try that, you may want to think about unintended consequences? So I think it would be great. And I'm really looking forward to facilitating and bringing those folks together. I'm really excited about that opportunity.
Do you think back to your university days in Ottawa and the beer rep salesman for Budweiser and where he is now in Edmonton all these years later?
Yeah, at times I think of the magical journey I've been on. It's been fantastic to date. I'm looking forward to the next big chapter. I'm writing it right now, and it's really exciting to be here in Edmonton and doing that sort of thing.
There's so many great takeaways, but for me, purpose, vision, values. You said it many times in the first episode when we were talking about your first 2 ventures and in this one. And that's where you hang your hat, isn't it?
It really is. And you can't spend enough time crafting it right, making sure the language is right, the intent is right, so that it's memorable for people. Because it's one thing to have it written. We've all been in businesses where you look and say, wow, great, I see it on the wall. Mm-hmm. But if you can't live it and put it into practice automatically, it's probably not worth the paper it's written on.
Mike Calverley, thank you so very, very much. This has been awesome. And thank you for joining us on Early Days. Special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Proust Chown. In the world of entrepreneurship, the right support is invaluable, and they are there for you. Remember, purpose, vision, values. Mike, thanks.
Thank you.
This series is proudly produced by the team at Road 55. Road 55 creates content that connects. For more information, check our website, www.road55.ca.